Hi everyone. Today in the studio I'm going to show you how to use one of my round stencil designs to create a repeat pattern across a large area. So I'm going to be doing this on a piece of fabric as the end result, and I'm going to be using some RIT dies today and also the color magnet product, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. So basically what I'm going to do first is I have a large piece of paper in front of me, scrap paper, and I'm actually going to build out this stencil design 3 times. And the way I'm going to start it is by using the center medallion part. So I'm just going to place a marker here in the very center, and I'm going to place my circle in the center, and it's really just an estimate. It's fine. I'm going to use some of my little stamp pad here to actually fill this in. So by starting this way, you can work using your center point, and once you have that, you can then go in and create the markings for the part that goes around the stencil. So here, the first thing you want to do is you want to mark these before you actually stencil them out. So making sure that this central pivot point here is on the center mark that you marked on the base center piece. Now I want to go in and I want to mark these registration points out before I actually go and stencil the rest of it. And what I do is I line up the mark that I made and with the center, and then I'm going to mark the next registration point. And I'm going to continue this around the entire circle, lining up my marks, creating the next mark, which really just takes a few seconds, or 1 minute, a few seconds. Okay, so here I am. I've got all my lines marked out here, my registration points, and I'm back at the center. So now what I'm going to do is go in and create my medallion. And just to change things up here, I've got a couple different ink pads, and so this is my first one. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go over this just to create 3 of these. So I want to create 3 medallions just like this, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I literally want to see the size of the medallion and place them next to each other so that I can determine the spacing that I want for my repeat. So I'm going to make 3 of these medallions exactly the same way, and I'm going to cut out around them, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I'm back with my 3 medallions that I kind of created on paper really quick and cut them out. Just easily just cut them out so that I can play with the spacing here and determine how I want to lay these out on my fabric. Now again, every repeat is going to be based on the size of your image, the shape of your image, and how much spacing you want in between these images. So that's going to be different every time you lay out a different stencil design to create a drop repeat. So what I want to do first is I want to take these 3 images here and kind of space them out visually so that I feel like it's balanced and there isn't like too much space here as opposed to how much space is here. And what I want to do at that point is measure the distance between these 2 points here, and then I want to measure the distance from here to the center point that will be here. So I've got a couple different rulers just to help me out here. So in looking at the first measurement, I've got about 11.5 inches here. So I could leave it at 11.5, but I want to make this easier for myself when I go to measure out on my fabric. So I'm just going to pull that out to 12 inches. There, I got a nice 12-inch repeat horizontally. Now I want to look at how far down this medallion is going to be in order to create a visual balance here between this line of images here and then the next line of images that are semi-half dropped into the next repeat. So if this was an actual half drop repeat, you'd be taking your image, you'd be moving it halfway over and you'd be dropping it halfway down. And as you can see, this image does not work in a perfect half drop repeat. So basically this is the way we're going to be figuring it out. We're going to say, okay, this is an odd shape. I just want to define my measurements so that I can lay this out on my fabric to create a repeat pattern that I'm going to stencil onto my fabric. So here I've moved this out. We've got 12 inches center point to center point. And I know that this is going to fall in the middle of that, which is going to be 6 inches. And I just want to kind of visually eyeball how much space is here, and I want to create a nice balance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other ruler here and I'm going to put that edge right on that. Oh, yeah, that's the edge I want. So the very edge of this ruler is going to the center point. So I'm lining up this ruler right against that ruler. And when I look down at my center point, which you can barely see, it's falling at about 8.5 inches. And I really like the spacing that I'm seeing, so I don't think I want to change that just to an even number of inches just to make it work. So I think this is what my measurement is going to be. My horizontal repeat is going to be 12 inches. And my vertical repeat is going to be 8.5 inches below that. And what's going to happen is I'm going to mark out a line on my fabric that I won't be able to see after I dye it. But I'm going to mark out that line on my fabric so that I know it's perfectly even. And then I'm going to mark out the 12-inch center points all the way across that line. And then on an 8.5-inch drop, another line, I'm going to be marking out this line, and then halfway between this mark and that mark, the 6-inch mark, I'm going to be marking my center point for the drop. So I know this is kind of confusing, and hopefully I'm being clear in how I'm explaining it, but you'll start to see as I work on the fabric itself. I'm going to mark it in pencil because I know that my goal is ultimately to dye this piece of fabric, so I'm not worried about those pencil lines showing up later. So next step, to lay this out on fabric to get ready to stencil.